I think that the election now, the ballot question in the Liberal leadership race and in the general election is who can stand up for Canada and who can fight for Canada. And that's like the pitch I'm making, Bill, right. Is I'm saying to Canadians, I can fight for you and I can win. Right.
All right, I might have added that laugh track myself. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 9 of Jonny Says So. And we are 1 week away from Justin Trudeau's resignation and the Liberal leadership selection process. And Chrystia Freeland is out on her press tour trying to convince anybody who will listen that she is the correct choice. And she landed herself a spot on Real Time with Bill Maher. Now, normally I'm a pretty big fan of Bill Maher. I mean, it's not as bad as some of the other late night comedy, which is really just state propaganda. Bill Maher actually has some reasonable takes sometimes, when it is safe to do so. I was a little disappointed in his interview with Chrystia Freeland, though. I didn't think there was... He pushed back on her a little bit, but he never really pressed her on the important stuff, and to be quite honest, he seems shockingly ignorant about Canadian politics. So let's get right into it. Now, before I start playing, I'm sorry about the quality of the clips. I had to do a little bit of creative editing with the filter there and the audio, just because HBO is a little bit litigious when it comes to playing their content.
But, I mean, the truth is, this has helped your campaign. I mean, you were the Liberals. Now, you're about to have the primary, basically, is how we would describe it. If you get that, because Trudeau's out, he's already quit, you were in his cabinet, you would become then the Liberal leader. And then in the election, if you won, now the Liberals were way behind in the polls until Trump did this. He kind of saved your ass.
He's spot on about that one. I gotta give him that.
Is that not true?
I think that the election now, the ballot question in the Liberal leadership race and in the general election is who can stand up for Canada and who can fight for Canada. And that's like the pitch I'm making, Bill, right. Is I'm saying to Canadians, I can fight for you and I can win.
Right, but as soon as the conservative here in America said he was going to invade Canada, suddenly the conservatives in Canada didn't look too good. I mean, the guy you will be running against, Pierre
I'm very surprised Bill Maher doesn't know this.
How do we say his name? Pierre?
Well, I call him Maple Syrup MAGA, or Mini Trump.
Maple Syrup MAGA, or Mini Trump. Man, it just never gets old. She really thinks that's funny.
Well, of course, that doesn't help with my pronunciation.
Sorry.
And also, like, you know what? This is sad to me that everybody becomes more like America in our worst kind of ways. I remember seeing an ad not that long ago when I was playing up in Canada. It was campaign season. It was almost comically polite. Whoever Trudeau was running against. I mean, it was ridiculous. They certainly weren't calling each other names. But I hear this guy, Pierre
Poilievre.
Poilievre. I had it with the poutine. It's terrific.
I heard you talking about bilingualism. Okay. That's actually our thing.
I know.
We are bilingual.
Right.
Yeah.
But who is this guy? I never heard of him. I mean, I should maybe, but I try to follow a little bit of Canada. Who is he? And he sounds very Trumpy. I mean, this is sad to me that people in Canada are losing their polite.
Well, I think it's sad for...
He sounds a little Trumpy. This has been the narrative that they have been pushing for 2 years now, that Pierre Poilievre is just like Trump. He's mini Trump. He's maple syrup MAGA. But just recently, all the wind has been taken out of the sails of this narrative. Take a look at this, guys. Trump says Pierre Poilievre's biggest problem is that he's not a MAGA guy. And I want to play you a little snippet of that interview so you can hear it for yourself.
I don't know. After that debate, they all seemed, she was the nuttiest, but they all seemed pretty nutty to me.
She's a whack.
The conservatives obviously have taken a hit in the polls since some of the comments that you've made that the liberals have leaned into. Do you think that they're still going to be able to pull it out up there?
Well, I think his biggest problem is he's not a MAGA guy, you know? I mean, he's really not. He's not a Trump guy at all.
Yeah. He's more of a throwback Republican.
He's different.
Yeah.
Making a big mistake. They all make that mistake, you know? They think they're going to be the tough guy and they're going to knock out Trump.
Yeah.
And they end up getting the hell beat out of him.
And there it is, right from the horse's mouth. Nothing like Trump. And that is absolutely right. Pierre Poilievre is not like Trump. The only similarity he has is that he wants to put this country first. And he's been talking about, you know, the things that we should be doing to become more self-sufficient. But the silver lining here is that now even the NDP is talking about building pipelines. And I don't know how you can honestly ignore the gaslighting and the taxing you into oblivion over the last few years. But anyway, let's get back to Bill Maher.
For us too, and he is pretty Trumpy, and I think he built a campaign on trying to imitate Trump. But now that Canadians see President Trump wanting to turn us into the 51st state, it's not going so well. And look, Canadians are very smart. And Canadians understand that right now what we need the most is someone who can stand up for our country.
Now, I think Pierre Poilievre is perfectly capable of standing up for this country. He's just talked about this interview recently, actually. Let's go look at this. Mr. President, it is true. I am not MAGA. I am for Canada first, always. Canada has always been America's best friend and ally, but we will never be the 51st state. Pretty simple. But I want to get back into the interview because Bill Maher makes a really good point here, and he asks a really good question. Unfortunately, he allows her to lie, and he doesn't really push back on her. And I don't know if that's because he's unaware of what's going on in Canada or if he's helping her out. So let's go check this out.
I saw recently, I think it was last week, Ottawa, I see, is trying to pass a law limiting the amount of time you can idle your car. Now, I've been in Canada in the winter. It's pretty fucking cold out there.
That's why we used to have snowbirds before we decided we didn't want to spend our money in the United States.
Don't you love how she just has to throw that in there, too? She's on American television, and she's just there reminding Americans about the divide that's going on right now. This is not helpful.
Don't think this, I mean, the reasoning is it's going to put a dent in global warming. I don't think it is. That you can only idle your car for a minute, I think remotely in 3 minutes if you're in it before you can get going to warm it up. This just pisses people off. And it looks like, as in America, they still haven't gotten the memo that this shit don't work.
Good for Bill Maher. This is why I kind of like the guy, because he will speak some truth when he's allowed and when it's safe.
So you're against that kind of stuff, right?
Look, Bill, I have got the menu. I have received the memo, to be a polite Canadian. I have received the memo, sir.
Yes.
And
now, she says she's against this kind of stuff. She's against it now because it is extremely unpopular, and it was becoming obvious that it was going to lose her the election. I'd like to remind you guys of where she was this time last year.
But we're the only country in the G7 that has raised fuel taxes since this period of record inflation. And I just want to know if you're aware of that and if you still think that the plan to triple the carbon tax is a fair one on Canadians.
I absolutely believe that a price on pollution is the right thing for Canada and for our economy.
Wow, that's radically different from what she's saying now. Let's go take a look at some other stuff that she said.
We have a national price on pollution, and we maintained that price even last year at a time of high inflation. If I took my jacket off, you would see the scars on my back for having done that, because I'm finance minister. And
What is she even talking about?
we actually increased our price on pollution at the beginning of this month to $65 a ton.
Man, that arrogant smile is very reminiscent of when she was laughing about freezing the bank accounts of the people who supported the trucker convoy. Absolutely insane.
And, politicians win when they listen to people sincerely and hear what people are saying to them about their lives. And politicians lose
when they listen to people and hear what they have to say about their lives. Does anybody remember when she was in Prince Edward Island and she was asked by journalists, why are you imposing such a steep tax on us? You're going to kill our industry. We rely on car tourism. Man, this was one of her biggest blunders. I want to take you back in time to this one.
Question for the Deputy Minister. What do you say to Prince Edward Islanders who woke up to a significant increase in gas, diesel, and oil this morning between 6 and 8 cents per litre?
Okay, well, I have been talking about that with Heath and Sean. Heath and Sean and I had breakfast together before that.
One of the key industries here on Prince Edward Island in particular is our tourist industry, and particular to that, our car tourist industry. People traveling from our region to this island to be tourists with policies like the carbon tax and the clean fuel standards, which are by design meant to reduce consumption of fuel and reduce. Are you worried that's going to have a chilling effect on one of the key industries here on Prince Edward Island?
So yeah, I'm very aware of that, and actually with a couple of my colleagues, we drove here last night from Halifax. We very much believe in PEI. We believe in the tourism industry, and we believe in the PEI economy overall. Today's announcement was about all of that. You guys are nice.
I did want to say one more thing, though. I don't need you to retread the ground you've gone over, because you've answered this question from the other side. But you are facing a lot of pushback in this region, in particular from local politicians, local provincial governments that say this, they're not opposed to it, but it's coming too soon, too fast. They need more time to adapt. What do you say to that?
You know what? I say I do really understand. I really understand the challenges. A fact that still shocks my dad is I don't actually own a car because I live in downtown Toronto. I'm 300 meters from the nearest subway. I walk, I take the subway, I make my kids walk and ride their bikes and take the subway. It's actually healthier for our family. I can live that way. I can live that way.
It just doesn't get any more out of touch than that. And the really funny thing is 2 weeks after this, she was pulled over in Alberta for speeding. Federal finance minister who does not own a car, fined for speeding. And I love how even CBC has to point out the obvious hypocrisy with that little quip there, who does not own a car. It's absolutely crazy, guys.
And when we think our job is to lecture people, that's not how democracy works.
People don't like bossy and they don't like snobs.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm always trying to tell them that.
Although,
But what was she just doing there? She was lecturing people. somebody asked a very good question of how is the tourism industry supposed to survive in PEI if people can't afford to drive their cars there? And they got a lecture about taking the subway. Does she even know that Atlantic Canada does not have a subway? I don't know.
So Justin Trudeau, who's on his way out, used to be very popular. I mean, he still has his fans, 3. And they may be asking, why did you turn on him? Because, you were part of his government. What was it? And also, what would you do differently? And if you watch the election here, don't ever say, nothing comes to mind. That's the bad answer to that one. What would you do differently?
That's a great Kamala Harris reference.
Well, with the Prime Minister, I think every politician has their sell-by date, and that's part of what happened. But I think the other thing that happened is my party, we're actually called the Liberal Party, and I am an old school liberal.
No, you're not. Chrystia Freeland is not an old school liberal. Bill Maher is an old school liberal. I can't believe he did not push back at her at all about this. This is what an old school liberal sounds like.
Justin Trudeau. What? You're laughing. But Justin Trudeau, I thought he was kind of a cool guy. And I started to read what he said. This is a couple of weeks ago. Or maybe this is September, but he was talking about people who are not vaccinated. He said they don't believe in science. They're often misogynistic, often racist. No, they're not.
That was not smart of him at all.
Right. He said, but they take up space. And with that, we have to make a choice in terms of a leader as a country. Do we tolerate these people? It's like, tolerate them? Now you do sound like Hitler.
That was...
and recently he talked about them holding unacceptable views.
Wow. I'm surprised to hear that Trudeau said those things.
You didn't see the blackface?
Oh, man. That's a good one. All jokes aside, though, Bill Maher was the only one on mainstream late-night television that dared to have a take like that, and he passed up a golden opportunity to take Chrystia Freeland to task for this. I'll say it before and I'll say it again. She laughed about freezing the bank accounts of, never mind the trucker protesters themselves, but the ones who donated money to them. All right, let's keep playing.
And Liberals in Canada win when we are focused on people and on what they need in their lives. And we lose when people think that we're focused on virtue signaling and identity politics.
So the same thing that sunk the party here in America when they went.
Virtue signaling and identity politics. Like everything that's been coming out of your government for the last decade? Now, I really wish that he had pushed back on her about this, but sadly he didn't. After all, she is in full campaign mode.
I am in full campaign mode. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was in a small city called Saskatoon. And a little 4-year-old girl came up to me with her mother. Her name was Ari. And she said to me in the serious way a little 4-year-old can you stop Trump from invading Canada? So right now, we are a country where 4-year-old children are saying, how do we stop this guy from invading my country?
No, we are in a country where 4-year-old children are exposed to their lunatic parents who are putting all of this fear into their heads. God, I don't think this story happened, but if it did, that little girl's parents are terrible human beings. Anyways, guys, what did you think about Chrystia Freeland's appearance on Bill Maher? I'd love to know in the comments. And, as always, if you like my content, please like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.